I just want to touch on one brief thing relative to that cellular phone that that I was asking you questions about that was recovered from the Wailuku area. Do you remember the brand and type of phone that was?
If that's the one, you just refresh my memory by looking at that voucher. That was the LG Verizon?
Okay, so not AT&T, but Verizon, right?
Correct. That would have been the label that was on the phone that I read.
And not an iPhone, but an LG type.
Correct.
Relative, okay, I think we just finished off your work on the 19th of February. To move to the 20th of February 2014, would it be accurate that you, I guess, did some tests on 2 tree limbs? That sound accurate?
Can I refer to my report, make sure I know which tree limbs you're talking about?
Let me see if it's worth going through that. Let's just move forward. Let me withdraw that question. On the 20th of February would have been when tissue was removed from the jawbone. Does that sound accurate?
Sounds correct, yes. From in the morgue, yes.
Okay. I guess we can move on to the 23rd of February. I think would that be the day that you tested for fingerprints and ridge details on the tape rolls? Does that sound about right?
Yeah, I would have to refer to my report, but it sounds approximately correct.
Yeah, just for convenience, do you have the report?
Yes.
There? Okay, and we can move forward, and if you do need to refer to it, there's nothing wrong. What type of tape rolls were those?
Like masking tape.
Do you have any experience with masking tape?
Just from doing home improvement stuff.
Okay, on that note, based on your experience with that type of tape, what is that type of tape used for?
Usually it's used for taping off areas that you don't want to get painted.
So painters would use those. Is that accurate?
There's objection of the speculation of foundation.
The objection is sustained.
Well, isn't that what you were just saying, that basically it's used when you paint, right?
The objection is no foundation in
The
speculation.
objection is sustained.
Well, let me ask you, are you familiar with duct tape?
Yes, sir.
Can we, well, let me move. At some point, and I'm moving forward to February 24th, did you recover a disposable lighter? You're welcome to refer to it.
Okay. I did recover a lighter. I just want to make sure of the date. Yes, I did recover on the 24th of February.
And it would be accurate to say that maybe a couple months later, on April 27th, you did some swabbing on that?
Yes, I did.
Where did those swabs go?
They were submitted as evidence.
Okay, were they ever submitted for testing of any sort?
Not to my knowledge.
Were there any other tests done, for example, fingerprinting of that disposable lighter?
I did check the exterior of the lighter to see if there were any latent fingerprints, but none were observed.
I can turn to February 27th, would it be accurate that that was the day that you recovered buccal swab samples from Stephen? Is that accurate? And you're certainly free to refresh.
Yes, and if I recall correctly, it was in around 7 p.m., yes, on the 27th.
And after that, you folks ended up over at Stephen's residence?
Yes, we did.
And that's where you folks took photographs of Stephen's bedroom on that date, is that accurate?
Yes, sir.
Who else was there when you were taking photographs of Stephen's room?
Can I refer to my report and see? Okay, so Detective Lou, Lieutenant Danny Dodds, several other officers, and Mr. Capobianco, and I think some other residents. I'm not sure who they were.
Okay, and so when you say Mr. Capobianco was there, was he in the room while you folks were in the room?
He was at the residence. I don't recall if he was in the room. Otherwise, he would have been in the photographs. But I usually don't like photographs like to include the people.
At least in terms of your personal experience while you were there, would it be fair to say that Stephen did not try to hinder what you were doing at any time?
Yes, I do not recall any type of hindrance.
Totally compliant and consenting to whatever you folks were doing?
As I recall it, yes, sir.
Now, well, let me ask you this. While you were taking photographs, were things being moved in that room? Say in Stephen's room?
I don't think so, but I don't recall for sure.
Well, was anything stopping you folks from moving stuff?
Stopping us.
His objection, that's vague and ambiguous.
Well,
The objection is sustained.
for example, if you saw something of interest that you wanted to photograph, but something was in the way, was there anything stopping, like moving the thing that was in the way out of the way so that you could photograph?
I don't think so, no.
Did you have any kind of, to your knowledge, did you have any prohibition keeping you from moving or picking things up?
No. Not to my knowledge.
Indeed, to your knowledge, wouldn't it be fair to say that you and the other officers there had total access to move things if you wanted to, right?
I'm assuming so. I was just taking my direction from the lead investigator.
Your Honor, I do object. This calls for speculation.
The objection is sustained.
If I'm not mistaken, one of the things that Mr. Rivera asked you questions about was the blue jeans that you photographed in Stephen's room, right?
I know I photographed some, I think there were some blue jeans on the floor near the bed.
Right.
Yes.
Now, is there anything stopping you or any of the officers from going to that pair of pants, looking at the waist and length size of that pants?
Your Honor, a form of the question is argumentative. It assumes facts on the evidence.
That it has a waist and length?
No, is anything stopping him?
The objection is sustained.
Thank you.
Sorry, what was the objection? What grounds, Your Honor?
The objection is sustained and as being argumentative. If you'd like to rephrase, you may.
Would you agree with me that by February 13th, you had a pair of blue jeans that was being tested to see whether you could get any evidence of it being associated with a suspect? Would that be fair to say?
Would you clarify the date, please?
As of February 13, 2014?
I did not personally have a pair of blue jeans. No, I did not.
Now, you testified about the blue jeans with stains on the right front and all of that, right?
That I photographed? Yes.
When was the first time you knew about those jeans?
On, can I refer to my report? I'm pretty sure it was March 3, but Yes, March 3, 2014 is when I received and first saw the pair of blue jeans.
Okay, so aside from the officers who recovered and studied it upon the recovery, you were not privy to that
Judge, objection.
until March.
Objection is cause for speculations to what officers did with respect to.
The objection is sustained.
Thank you.
Now, if those pants were recovered, well, you'd agree with me that while you did not know about those, or did not actually see those jeans until March, you were made aware of them prior to March. Would that be accurate to say?
I don't have a recollection of being made aware of them, no.
Okay. So while you were in Stephen's room, did you notice anybody pick up those pants and try to look at the size of those jeans that you testified photographing?
I don't recall seeing anyone do that. No, I do not.
Then, in addition to just doing what you did in his residence and in his room, you also did some testing on Stephen's vehicle on that same date. Is that accurate?
Yes.
And the results of that was nothing significant observed, right?
Are you referring to the presumptive testing?
Sure.
Nothing significant, I think, was observed. Can I review my report?
Sure. Page 152.
Yes, nothing significant was observed.
Move on to March. It would have been March 3rd that you first saw those jeans then? Is that?
When I received them, yes.
Now, when you did get your hands on those jeans, one of the things that you did was swab the jeans, correct?
Correct.
What is the purpose for that?
There are actually numerous purposes for that, but in this instance, one was to swab the apparent stains, the visible stains on the jeans, and then secondly would have been when I collected swabs of the waistband area.
Why do you do that?
That meaning the last part or the
Any
whole
of
thing?
those swabbings that you just talked about.
Okay.
Why do you do that?
So there's two purposes. One is for any type of visible stains, a presumptive test would be conducted. And then for the waistband itself, with no staining, is to hopefully obtain some type of DNA that may be present on the waistband.
You're aware that the DNA testers have the ability and do in fact do that themselves, right?
Judge, objections, no foundation for speculation.
The objection is sustained.
I mean, you'd agree with me that if the DNA testers themselves take swabs, it is duplicative on your part to give them swabs.
Objection is cause for speculation and proper hypothetical if it is one.
The objection is sustained.
Thank you.
Well, let me ask you this. Well, I'll move on. Would it have been March 4th that you, did you personally cut down that tree over at Wailuku Bay?
Yes, sir.
Would it have been March 4th?
It was on March 4th. Yes, it was.
Is there a reason why that wasn't done back on, say, the 19th of February?
No specific reason that I can recall.
Was the hair, were there still hairs in that tree when you cut it down on March 4th?
I don't recall if there were hairs still in it, but I can refer to my notes just to make sure. No, it doesn't appear that there were any other hairs recovered from the cuts of the tree.
You know, I do object because that's not responsive to the question if there were still hairs in the cuts.
The objection is sustained.
So what does that mean?
So that was a wrong answer with the strike. That answer is
The
non-responsive.
motion to strike is granted.
On that same day, March 4th, did you recover any kind of Red Bull can?
Yes, I did.
What was done with that?
Can I refer to my report, please? Thank you. Okay, on March 23, the empty Red Bull can was processed with black powder for the purpose of detecting any latent fingerprints, and no ridge details were observed.
Okay, was it swabbed at the drinking area like the Coca-Cola can for DNA or anything?
No, I don't recall. I don't think it was, because it was found within a stream of water.
So is it your testimony that things with DNA on it would no longer have DNA on it if it's in a stream of water?
There's no objection. That's an argument. It was all speculation.
It's to clarify his answer.
That's not what he said, Your Honor.
I will sustain the objection, and I think there will need to be foundation if you wanted to answer a question like that.
Were you shown the location of that can prior to recovering it?
Can I refer to my report? I think it was actually recovered by another officer.
On page 153.
Yes, it was recovered by another officer.
Okay, my question was, were you shown that location, I guess before it was recovered by the other officer then?
I don't recall without looking at my photographs. I remember taking photographs of the stream, but I don't recall if I took photographs of the can in place.
Okay. Moving on relative to your March 4th activities, would it be accurate to say that that's the day that you recovered the trace evidence from the gray sweatshirt, including or what amounted to 48 hairs?
Yes, approximately. Yes.
Did you also note 2 pink fibers in there
Yes.
and 2 blue fibers?
Yes.
What kind of testing was done, if any, on the 2 pink fibers and 2 blue fibers?
I know all of that evidence was shipped off for analysis, but I did not conduct any additional testing.
Okay, so your testimony is that those 2 pink fibers and 2 blue fibers were sent for further testing?
Yes.
And did you package it for them or anything?
I would have, yes.
Do your notes tell you, or do you know when you packaged those items?
I would have to look at the actual items on the chain of evidence, but I seem to recall it was in July, so several months later.
Moving on to March 6th. 2014. You received a tooth on that day from Detective Lou?
Yes, that we had received in the mail.
Was anything done with that?
I know I photographed it, but I'm not sure if any other additional testing was conducted on that one.
And then later that evening on March 6th, would it be accurate to say that you went over to the Kihei station to do additional processing of Stevens, of Forerunner?
The burned Forerunner, if I...
Burned one?
Yes, the burned vehicle, yes.
And you did those presumptive tests on that vehicle?
Nothing significant was observed.
And that, when you say nothing significant was observed, that is after doing the presumptive testing
Correct.
and the results thereof?
Correct.
On March 15th, you take some tape lifts from the interior and exterior surfaces of the gray hooded sweatshirt. Would that be accurate?
Yes, sir.
Okay, what is done with those?
Again, those were shipped to Honolulu PD for trace evidence analysis.
On March 23rd, 2014, did you do anything relative to some slippers that were recovered? You're welcome to check the
Thank you. Talking about the two slippers, yes.
notes. What was done?
So around 3 in the afternoon, in the lab, I did take samples using cotton swabs and sterile water of the interior surfaces of the two slippers' thong straps.
And what was done with those samples?
Oh, they were dried and packaged, submitted as evidence.
Were they, I guess, sent anywhere for testing?
I don't think so.
And that's relative to the swabs? Is that accurate?
Yes.
As well as the slippers themselves? The slippers themselves were not sent for testing?
To my knowledge, correct.
On March 23rd at about 3:30 p.m., did you process a glove?
Yes, I did.
How did you do that?
Okay, so following photography, I actually used the forceps and sterile forceps as well as the sterile envelope to recover any visible hairs or fiber-like items on the glove. It was like a cotton, like a fabric glove, and then it was gray, if I recall correctly. And it was so again, recover anything that's visible, and then use tape lifts to roll and take any other trace evidence that may be present on the surfaces of the glove. And then several areas were also swabbed that looked like they had some kind of stains, and they were tested as well.
When you say tested, is that the presumptive test?
Correct.
Were they sent for any further testing?
No, not to my knowledge.
What about the swabs that were taken?
To my knowledge, no, the swabs were not.
What about anything that was stuck on those tape lifts? Was anything that was stuck on the tape lift sent for testing?
I don't recall if it was or not.
March 29th, a little afternoon, would it be accurate to say that you did some tests on the black jeans that were submitted to you by Officer Bonacarsi back on February 14th in the early morning hours?
Yes, I did.
And so would it be accurate to say that relative to at least those black jeans, you had seen them as early as February 14th of 2014, right?
Actually, I didn't open the package until I think the 15th.
Okay. So it would have been the next day, the 15th, that you actually saw the jeans itself?
Correct.
And as part of your observations and documentation of that jeans, would you agree with me that you took note of the size of those jeans?
The black jeans, I don't recall exactly.
We know that at the very least you measured them with tape measures, right?
Well, actually, I had a measure in the scale for the photograph.
At any point did you look at the jeans and look at the label and check the size?
Again, I don't have any notes that I did that, no.
Would you agree with me that in terms of documenting at least those jeans, at least for documentation purposes, that would be a significant thing to not only observe but to document in terms of the size of those jeans?
Objection is argumentative.
The objection is sustained.
So, would it be accurate to say that at least in terms of your efforts, when you were at Stephen's house photographing the jeans on the floor, you did not make any efforts to see whether the size of those jeans matched, for example, these black jeans at least, right?
I did not.
April 26th of 2014, about 3:37 in the afternoon, did you do anything relative to some small tree limbs? And you're welcome to refresh your recollection.
April
26th.
It doesn't have those dates included in this.
Yep, page 154 of the report there.
Oh, I'm sorry. No, I do not.
What page do you have up?
It stops with 153.
I'll give you my 154. May I approach that?
Yes.
Okay, so we're referring to, I'm sorry.
Yeah, did you do anything relative to any small tree limbs on April 26th at about 3:30, 2:37?
Yes, I did.
Okay, what did you do?
I, in the lab around 3:30 in the afternoon, I used sterile swabs and sterile water to collect samples of the red stains on 2 small tree limbs that were previously recovered, and then they were presumptively tested.
With nothing remarkable?
The swabs were negative.
Let me ask you, where were these, so your testimony is that these tree limbs were in your lab on April 26th?
Yes, they would have been.
Is this the tree limb that you had for the jury, or are these?
No, that's a different set of tree limbs, yes.
Did you recover those tree limbs?
No, sir.
I may approach to grab those.
Yep.
Thank you, and I have no further questions, Mr. Wilson.
Thank you.
All right, we'll take our lunch recess at this time, we can be at 1:30. Thank you very much.